What's going on, New Canoe Nation, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back. I feel like we haven't done one of these in a hot minute. We've been doing some Team New Canoe podcasts behind the scenes and been lacking on the Unlimited podcast. But it seems like Thursday nights are working pretty good because I do my other podcast with Paddle and Finn, and I do the New Canoe show before that. So probably for the remainder of hunting season, I'm going to do both shows on Thursday night so that way I can be out in the woods. So good to see everybody back. Be sure to drop in the comments where you're tuning in from. If you guys have any questions as we're going along throughout the show, feel free to drop them in there. We'll get them answered. We got my man Dave Palmer in the house, return guest. He's been on before. He's from Ontario, Canada. And, he has his own podcast as well, Punisher Waterfowl. So we're going to talk a little kayak hunting safety tonight. You know, the kayak hunting is becoming more and more popular. So we figured we could touch on some good stuff to keep you guys safe out there on the water, in the woods, and make sure you make it home to your loved ones. So we're going to be talking on a few things, tips, tricks, see what the bird movement's going on, because it's not very good down here. So I need to get the scoop from my man Dave. But let's get the man of the hour in the house, Mr. Palmer. Welcome back.
Hey, buddy, how's it going?
Good, man. Good to see you. I saw you shaking your head, and that wasn't good.
Oh, man, you're talking about the birds, and I'm like, it was like 16 degrees for the last week straight.
Is that Celsius or Fahrenheit?
That's our temperature, is the proper one, right?
Yeah. So Celsius. Okay. All right. I get it.
I love seeing these maps of the world that are like, it's like the United States and maybe like 2 or 3 other countries are colored red and everything else is blue. And you're supposed to guess what this is. And it's like, yeah, who's in the metric system and who's not.
Yeah. No, it's been, we had a couple cold fronts down here, and then it got really warm again, and it's been like high 60s, low 70s down here too, man. And I know I went out last Sunday with our teammate Brad Hurlboss, and man, we saw some birds for sure, but it like the numbers weren't there, and it just kind of stunk. I mean, we didn't even hear a lot of shooting going on, flying high and wanted nothing to do with the decoys. So
I think when that temperature drops, they're just going to start flying down. They're not going to get held up on a food source. They're just going to keep going. And
sure. Well, you guys are expecting a cold front up there, aren't you?
I don't know, man. I'm working 12 days straight. So
yeah, hopefully not keeping up.
Hopefully not until after that.
Well, I was listening to a guy talk today, and he does a lot of whitetail stuff, and obviously the rut's about to kick in, and he just came back from Saskatchewan, and he said the same thing as you said. It was really warm, and I guess there's a real big cold front coming in, and like they didn't get a frost till like I don't know, just recently, and usually they have their first snowfall by mid-October, and that still hadn't happened. So it just seems like every year we kind of push back a little bit, and then winter hangs around a little longer.
Yeah, everything's been changing, but it's perfect now. Like you can go out and kind of learn some of these areas, right? They can figure them out a bit better.
Yeah, without freezing your rear end off,
Right. And then when the birds do come in, like where you're going, and you're gonna have like 2 or 3 days of smashers, and then it's
So then it's onto flying over the fence at the border into the States, right?
Yeah. And then you guys get them all.
Yeah, we joked about that last time, I think, but no, good stuff, man. I know we wanted to talk a little kayak hunting safety and things like that, and I know you do a bunch of stuff with younger kids and things like that, so I definitely wanted to touch on that again. I know we talked about that previously in another podcast, and you guys can go back and watch and listen on the Facebook, the YouTube, or any major podcast platform. But let's talk a little safety, man. What are your maybe top 3 things that you see guys don't do that they should do to stay safe out there, man?
Yeah, I think number 1 is letting someone know that where you're going, right?
Yeah.
Um, it's hard. Like we don't want to let our duck holes, tell people where those are, right? Like our secret duck hunting spots or our honey hole, you know what I mean? But
Sure.
at the end of the day, someone needs to know where you are so that if you don't come home that night, it's like, hey, we got a place to start looking, right? Um, that,
We just talked about this on Paddle and Fin too, man. Me and Jay did a solo show, and the Seek One guys who represent New Canoe, they just did they do a big YouTube video series, and they just had a guy on that fell out of his tree stand, didn't let anybody know where he was. He was hunting at his hunt club, but it was like, I want to say it was 1,000, 2,000 acres, so guy could have been anywhere. And usually he stays out there the weekend, and the guy fell out of his tree and broke his back and his neck, and just kind of laid there for 2 days. Cell phone was in his pocket, couldn't reach it. And that was one of the things he talked about is, had I told somebody where I was, yeah, I still would be, basically paralyzed because he broke his back and his neck. But, some of the things that he went through, and, it's one of those things, man. Like I usually slack at that at the beginning of the season. And now lately here, I'll run out for an evening, sit in the tree stand or something. And, I send my wife a pin, just, hey, this is where I'm at in case I don't come home,
Mhm.
She likes to send me a text at dark, like, are you dead or are you alive?
Yeah. And
So,
I find with the duck hunting, like when you have the big boat or when you have the fields, like you're going to bring a group out. I find
sure.
myself with the New Canoe, like if no one else wants to go out, I'm
Yeah.
still
Go
going
for
by
a solo
myself
hunt.
because
Yeah.
you can go solo. So I find that more often than not, I'm doing solo hunts, and that's where you got to tell someone, especially like, if you got a buddy there and you're the one that falls in, you've got someone else there to help you,
Sure.
something, right? So, but yeah, you
Well,
gotta,
it's interesting. So, last Sunday when me and Brad were picking up and heading back in, and we were in his duck boat, not the kayaks, but there was a guy in a kayak paddling out, had no PFD on, lightweight, gear, had like a windbreaker jacket on, some pants, whatever. And we're in this marsh where, like, typically if you like go to stand up in that stuff, you're going up to your knees, like, and I can attest to that because we got Brad's boat stuck one morning at 4:30 a.m. on the last day of season while it was snowing and really cold out.
aren't
Just
you
like,
also like
just
nine
like to,
feet tall?
yeah. Well, I like to throw that out there.
Yeah.
Just saying. But we got that situation handled now. But had that guy fell in and nobody was around, especially fall, colder water temps, hypothermia, things like that. I know you're a firefighter, so that's something that shouldn't be messed around with. Hypothermia can set in pretty quick, right?
Yeah. And then people start doing crazy things, right? Like they'll, oh, now I'm hot, so I'm going to take my jacket off. Well, or my jacket's soaked, so I'm going to take it off, right? Like,
Sure.
yeah, you got to be careful.
What would you recommend if somebody fell in that cold water situation? And a lot of guys fish in the winter too, right? And especially up here in the north, even going into like early spring, first ice out, stuff like that. Water temps are still cold. Like, what should you do if you fall in?
So, number one, that's where good gear comes in. Like merino wool, right? That's why I'm
Yep.
a huge fan. I've been wearing the First Light merino wool for the last like 6-7 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that stuff, I don't know the exact number, but it's like it retains 80% of the warmth factor, even when it's wet, right? So that's where get out. The big thing is don't think that like, I'm just a little bit wet, I can stay here and hunt. Get back in, get in your truck, start getting warm, right? You
Yep.
can, if you lose a few decoys, you lose a few decoys, right? Luckily I've never been in that situation, but that's the first thing. Get back to shore and get somewhere where you can get warm. That's
What if you can't get like anywhere close to your truck?
that. Call sooner than later. Like,
Sure.
everyone's got a cell phone now. Call someone sooner than later. Get help coming, and right, because if you can't get to your truck, you're just going to start getting colder. And yeah, that's what I do.
And your body kind of like freezes up. Your extremities don't work as well, and things like that, man. So super key.
That's
What about number 2?
Number 2. So yeah, let people know where you are. Make sure you have your proper gear, right? Your life jacket. Like I said, invest in good merino wool. Life jacket number 1, merino wool number 2. That's get that stuff. It's a difference maker, right? And wear it. Like, yeah, you can have a life jacket, and sometimes before I would take the kids out when I was just by myself, I just put it, under the seat of the kayak, right? Like, oh, I'm fine. But then you start taking the kids out and you're making them wear it, and like, well, Dad, why aren't you wearing it? Well, yeah,
Sure.
Good point, right?
Right.
You got a life jacket there for a reason. Now, I'm not saying wear it like. So I'm very fortunate where I hunt that it's super shallow, but it's really deep to get to where it's shallow, right?
Right.
So
Right.
we wear our life jacket until we get to super shallow, and then when we set up, we're kind of just like sitting in layout blinds.
Sure.
The water's like a foot deep, so we take them off then, but wear them right until we're there. If you're going to be out somewhere where it's a bit deeper, still make sure you keep that on. You fall in, you want to make sure you have that, right? Like, I don't know if you saw one of those kayak hunting forums on the Facebook. There was a couple guys that they were like talking about, it's a good thing we had our life jackets on. We lost everything. We managed to keep our guns because they had the guns attached to a gun leash, but like, yeah, that was like last week.
Oh wow.
So
I didn't see that post, but I've known a few people that have gone into some cold water situations and weren't wearing the proper gear, and thankfully they had their PFD on, and that virtually saved their life.
Yeah, and that's just it, right? And once you fall in, just get back to shore, get in that truck, start getting warm, or start getting someone to come get you, right?
Yeah.
I
like it. I like it.
That's what I would say my second one would be. And then you're probably going to say, what's number 3, aren't you?
I probably, if I was a betting man,
yeah,
I would slap a hundo on that right now.
Yeah. Sorry for stealing your thunder there.
You're good. You're good.
Yeah. You know what? Another one that I would suggest, look at the forecast, look at the weather predictions. We're in a very fortunate time where we can see, like, I know we all joke about the weatherman not being right, but they're generally close, right? And if they're calling for thunderstorms, maybe not the best time to be out.
Sure.
Right.
Or high wind situations if you got a long paddle. Like I know Saturday they're calling for up to 30 mile an hour winds down here.
Yeah. And it might be an easy paddle out, but it would be a hard paddle in, or vice versa, right? So
sure.
Yeah, check your winds, check your, like, there's apps now that kind of predict what the waves are going to be.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So check it out. Like, there's no duck worth dying over. Right. Like,
and it goes for fish too, man.
Yeah. So like, why are we, you know what? Yeah. If it's going to be high winds that you probably shouldn't be paddling in, or high waves, do a field hunt that day or hunt the shore. Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Use your kayak to paddle out and set decoys and pick them back up, and then that's that.
Yeah.
Go to a creek where it's not going to be, super crazy.
Or a sheltered area, right? Like a sheltered,
down in a valley or something like that where the wind's blowing over the top of you.
Yeah.
Versus across the water, man. I've seen that way too many times. Like and I get it, right? Like guys get super excited about like, all right, man, it's my weekend to go out hunting, and then the weather's crap, and they just risk it. And it's like, you're gonna have another weekend to hunt, man. Like no risk is worth that. And Jared Talley's in the chat, and he says, high winds, I usually go on the river instead of the lake or bay. And I agree with that 100%, man.
100%. And like maybe I'm giving away a bit too much here, but like 2 of the best times that I find hunting for ducks is number 1, when there's good wind, which everyone knows that. But number 2, like right before or right after a storm.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yep.
and sometimes guys will push it a bit too much. Like right before a storm turns into, I should have cleaned up my decoys half an hour ago. Now I got to paddle in the storm, right?
Right.
So,
Right. Yeah. Never good, especially if you're using a metal paddle or something like that. Now you're holding a lightning rod as you're trying to collect some decoys.
yeah, exactly.
Never a good thing.
No,
Same thing with fishing poles, man. I'm guilty of it. We got another half hour before that storm gets here. You get to see it out on the horizon, and then next thing you know, you're paddling through a downpour to, or even motoring, even still, you're motoring through a downpour, then it's lightning. Most fishing guys have like 6 to 8 rods sticking straight up, like, hey, lightning, come hit me, like.
what's the deal with that? I don't get that.
Yeah,
6 rods, like holy Lipton.
Hey, I know you're not, a heavy fisherman, which, I don't even know how they allow you to stay in Canada because you're not, a super duper fisherman. But, you got to have a certain rod for a certain technique or a certain bait, or, you break one bait off. Now you got to retie. Instead, you could turn around, grab another rod. You're not missing that other fish you could have caught, but you're really not going to catch. But, you get my drift.
I'm picking up what you're putting down, buddy. But, yeah, still don't get it. But.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. It's like having a spare shotgun with you in case one, jams or breaks. Now you got a spare there that you can load up and get ready to go.
Is it the same too that like when your gun jams, you get pretty angry and?
Oh yeah. More than likely, you want to throw that gun over the side of your boat.
Yeah.
Same thing with a fishing rod, or you break it over your knee. Not saying that I've done that, but I may have.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah. It. And your gun never jams when it's like a flock of coots, right?
Right.
It'd be when like
all greenheads,
Yeah, all greenheads are like the first canvasback you've ever seen. Like click, like yeah.
No. Yep. That's usually how it goes.
Yeah. No.
So.
Yeah. But yeah, like I was saying, like, look at the forecast on your phone. Look at all those apps. They're great apps out there now, and leave some of them.
Yeah, I mean, for deer hunting, I use OnX, but I use it a lot for waterfowl as well. And you could, drop a pin on your map, and then it gives you an option to show wind and wind direction. So, for deer hunting, obviously, if you expect your deer coming from the north, you don't want to sit there with a south wind, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. Like, I always open it up like, all right, where should we set up today, depending on which way the wind's blowing, So it's a great tool, man. It's super cheap, and it shows a lot of public hunting land. That's why I use it a lot too. So
yeah. And the other neat thing is like OnX, Hunt Stand, all those apps. Like OnX doesn't do so well up in Canada here yet.
Okay.
But there's like Hunt Stand, and I forget what the other one's called, but going back to our first point about telling someone where you are, you can actually drop a pin and send that pin to someone, right?
Yep.
So someone
OnX
like you
is the
that's
same
going
way.
fishing,
Yep.
someone like you going fishing, you could send me that pin, and I'm not a fisherman, so it doesn't matter anyway, right?
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
That's what, my wife doesn't hunt, so it's perfect. Hey, babe, here's where I am. Don't tell anyone, it's my secret spot, right? So technology's good.
Well, that's usually what I do. I got all the spots I kind of sit when I deer hunt, and I go into OnX and I just send that to my wife or one of my friends that I know that has the app, so they could open it up and be like, all right, Brian's sitting over here. If anything happens, we know how to find him.
100%, right? And
so,
then, and with that too, like, it's good to tell them where you're going to be, but also kind of give them an idea, like, I'm going to be home at this time, or
sure.
Right. And then that way they know, like, hey, they're not here yet, but like maybe they shot a deer, maybe they, they're cleaning up or whatever. They'll give like a couple hours leeway.
Yep.
But then, come 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, it's like, okay, not home yet. Bars closed. They're probably go see where they are. Right. Yeah. Like
I typically, I typically like call my wife when I get back to the truck, or if she texts me, it's usually because I'm taking my stand down or whatever, and I'll be like, I'm packing up. I'll call you when I get to the truck. And if I shoot a deer, I usually send out a text like, get the freezer ready, so she knows I'm going to track a deer.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's important, man. Like that's such a crucial thing. Whether you're on the water, you're in the woods, in a tree stand, there's so many different things can happen. I mean, heck, dude, I've heard of guys like stabbing themselves with their arrows accidentally, or
Yeah.
or your knife, in your backpack, like,
Yeah.
falls out of your blind bag and stabs you in the foot, whatever, it's just or your hand, whatever it may be, it's just important to be able to have that line of communication. And even still, right, like, if you get in some areas where you don't really have service, there's other ways to communicate with the outside world, whether it be like a satellite phone, or I know Garmin makes some cool stuff, so if you do a lot of backcountry stuff, that's a crucial thing to have for sure.
Yeah.
you know
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the new iPhone 14 has some kind of SOS feature that's based on satellite.
Let's take a look.
See.
I
Take
don't
a look.
know.
Yeah.
I
I'm
know
not trying to. I'm
iPhones
not.
usually do, like if you go to unlock it, like, and you
Yeah.
can't, usually there's like a thing where you can slide for an SOS.
Yeah.
I
I
don't
think
know.
this.
I haven't
I think the
screwed
new
with this
14
one
has some kind of
much.
new
Satellite feature for that.
satellite feature or something. It's like a emergency. It's not like you're making a satellite phone call, but
Right.
I
You
don't.
could send out a message or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's
That's huge. That's
handy
huge.
feature for hunters, right?
Well, and right, like guys are going out on the Great Lakes now doing like open water hunts for diver birds and things like that. Like, you can have an EPIRB on your kayak. Like, they sell some cheap EPIRBs, or a marine radio, so you can get a hold of the Coast Guard, or even the guys that go offshore into the oceans, things like that. That's a great tool to have on you if you get into a hairy situation,
Yeah.
like we were talking about with the storms rolling in. Like, I know
Yeah.
on the Gulf, like a storm could pop up out of nowhere, and if you're in a kayak and all of a sudden you're in like 6-foot swells, it could get pretty gnarly real quick, and being able to, radio the Coast Guard and let them know your exact coordinates, which, all those guys have depth finders on their kayaks, like, that's another huge thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And another thing, when you're out in the cold, if your battery's getting low on that phone because you've been sitting there searching Kijiji the whole time you've been hunting, man.
Wait a minute. What is Kijiji?
Oh, it's like
This has got to be some kind of Canadian thing.
yeah, it's like the Canadian version of what's that? The classified ads, basically.
Oh,
It's
like
like
Craigslist, or
yeah, kind of like it's
Facebook Marketplace or something. Okay, all right.
it's like the OG Facebook Marketplace, right? Up here in Canada. Yeah.
Kijiji.
So if you're searching the marketplace looking for your next new canoe,
Gotcha.
and you've been doing that, and your phone's getting down in battery,
Yeah.
man, I'm not saying that it's going to save your life out there. Text your wife, be like, "Hey, babe, I'm okay. My phone's about to die." And then that way, when you get home, you don't get smacked. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
yeah, you
Sure.
want to make sure that she knows, like,
Yeah.
phone's about to die. Because I ran into that once where, yeah, getting a couple messages.
Where have you been?
Yeah, yeah, right. So you want to be careful with that too, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
May save a marriage or a relationship. I like it.
You never
I like
know,
it.
right? So
See?
yeah,
Life
it's never,
advice with Dave Palmer.
yeah, it happened once, and
It never happened again.
no, but you got on. I took it from her perspective, like you don't know where they are, and they're not messaging you back, right? So they're worried about you just as much, right?
Yeah,
so,
right. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it for
So.
sure. Right on.
Yeah.
Well, before we end, man, what about hunting with kids, like younger kids, things like that? I know, like, you've taken your boy out hunting quite a bit. Now he goes out with his buddies and things like that. But if somebody's watching or listening and they want to take their young son or daughter out hunting, like, what's a couple like just key suggestions to give them?
man, do all the same stuff we just talked about, but make sure that they're wearing their, personal protective equipment, their life jackets. Make sure their life jacket is sized for them. Like it'll have a size on the inside, right?
Sure.
Um, make sure it's the right size. That life jacket is super important. Um, and yeah, the other thing too, if the kid's telling you like, hey, I'm cold, I want to go back.
Yeah.
We're done with the days of like, oh no, you're fine, let's just stay. Like, number one, it's not going to be a fun experience for them anymore. Number two, maybe they are cold. Like,
Sure.
just make it as fun for them as possible, and maybe they'll want to come back. Right?
Yeah.
If they remember like sitting there shivering with their dad saying like, you can wait, tough it out, they won't want to go the next time.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
yeah. But no, that's a big thing. Just make sure they have their proper protective equipment on. Yeah. Another thing, I know I've been pushing gun leashes, right?
Yep.
It's kind of like the same as your paddle leashes.
Mm-hmm.
I first started making them for people out of paracord.
Yep.
I've now switched to actually just the steel coated cable decoy.
Okay.
Like
decoy rig.
like the Texas rig material, right?
Right.
I switched to that and have that, sit in your kayak, see where you're going to mount it to on your kayak. Don't mount it to yourself, because if you fall in with your gun, that's
it's weighing you down.
It's an extra 5 pounds, right?
Sure.
You don't need that. And not the weight may not matter as much as like it's a gun that's now free floating in the water and it could catch on something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Attach it to your kayak. That way, if it drops, if you fall in, like, your guns are expensive, man. So yeah, I've been pushing that.
Yeah, huge. I like it. I like it, especially the part, attach it to your kayak, not yourself. I think a lot of people overlook that.
Yeah, and anything that you want to keep, like, have a couple blind bags in the kayak with you and attach them to your kayak. Your kayak tips, you're not going to lose it all. That's
sure. Yeah, you could have a couple boxes of shells in there, whatever.
Yeah,
it's a lot of money nowadays.
Yeah, if you can find some, if you can find them, right?
Yeah.
So
Yep. I split a case with Brad at the beginning of the season, and I'm like, oh, we should probably do that again.
Yeah, soon.
Yeah,
especially the way I shoot, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a couple hunts.
Yeah. 3 shots at one teal. Yeah. I'm batting, 1 for 3 right now. So
when you measure like your hunts with how many boxes of shells you use for a hunt versus like, oh yeah, I only use a box of shells and that'll get me like at least 12 birds, right? So
sure.
You're counting the wrong way.
I like it, man. Well, before we wrap this up, man, any final thoughts? Anything else you want to throw out there, man?
Oh, you know what? Check us out. The Punisher Waterfowl on YouTube. We're gonna have, as soon as I'm free to start kayaking in, I'm gonna have some kayak content going up there with the new canoe. Check us out. Check us out at the Toronto Sportsman Show. Yeah. Any more questions, or if you want to get out for a hunt in Ontario, as soon as I'm ready, as soon as I'm allowed, hit me up, right?
Yeah. I like it, man. I like it. These guys do an awesome job over at Punisher Waterfowl, Dave and the rest of the guys. And they just cut it up and tell stories and talk to individuals. They talk about all types of things related to waterfowl hunting, and it's good content, man. And it's you always get a laugh in there too. So it's an entertaining show, man. Entertaining show for sure.
Yeah. So thanks, buddy. Appreciate that.
No problem, man. Go follow Dave and in the podcast there. Check them out. You guys upload like what, twice a week now or something, right? Or is it 3 times?
So I started doing, like, we started having a couple, and then like when I was supposed to do that show with you, as soon as I got COVID, I haven't been able to talk right since then. And this is now, I'm starting to get better. So we'll get back to getting more content going up there, and we'll get back to it.
Like it.
Yeah.
Like it. Yeah. You guys usually upload Monday mornings, right?
Monday mornings. Check it out. Spotify, YouTube, basically all the podcast spots.
Yep.
Yeah. So
I like it. Thanks everybody for tuning in this week. Next week we're going to be talking paddling the Flint. Going to get back to the origins. Going to talk about a little bit of paddling, go through the Flint, and we're going to have team new member Jimmy Skinner on, and we're going to talk about that. And it should be a good show, man. He utilizes that down south in the Alabama area and surrounding states, and does really well on it. And it's something that we haven't like really highlighted a ton here on the Unlimited podcast. So Jimmy reached out. We're going to do that show. So tune in next Thursday, 6 Central, 7 Eastern, 4 o'clock out on the West Coast. So
it'd be good.
What's that?
Since I'm on another podcast, sometime I should come on this one and host and ask you questions. We need to know about Brian Schiller. No.
Once we did that once. Matt Gibson did that. But if you want to do it again,
I think we need to do it again, buddy.
More than happy. I'll give you the reins. It's all yours, buddy. I'll sit back in this chair and answer any question you want, my friend.
Yeah, this is going to be good. We'll have fun, and I'll learn how to fish.
There you go. You just got to have a co-host, man. You got to have a co-host.
Matty Gibson will come on.
No. It's got to be my buddy from Newfoundland.
Oh, right. Yeah. Damien, if you're listening, you and me, buddy, talking to the Schiller.
I like it, man. Well, I appreciate you taking time away from the family night and sitting down, chatting with us, and just sharing the good word, man. I appreciate it. Everybody go follow Dave and his podcast, Punisher Waterfowl, and great stuff on there, and stuff that'll be useful. And you guys talk both field and water hunts, correct?
Yeah, we talk about anything, and we've been starting to get a lot more products, like new. We're trying to find new stuff, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, anything we can. If you have a topic that you want us to talk about, hit us up. Let us know. Waterfowl.
Love it. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week, Thursday. Till next time. Tight lines. Actually, I should say straight shooting. Straight shooting. Yeah, straight shooting, smooth paddling. See ya.